Good evening, wonderful friends. We are back in the celebratory mode today, streaming live 92nd episode 2022 of Deep Talks, founder and host Ms. Gurleen Khokhar with you. And we are going to be in conversation with Mr. Roland Lee. And I'm so delighted that I have my co-host who's going to introduce Mr. Roland Lee and also highlight what he's doing. The word kindness has touched me since many years. He has a divine calling with us, and I'm sure this is going to bring some joy, humor, and humanity at its best. This episode is going to be making me feel very honored. The time I'm going to live my aha moment and the walk towards celebrating the 100th showtime soon. I hope that you enjoy, share, comment, so that we come to know who's present with us. Not only the ones who are live with us, but the ones who will be watching us later. This show is remarkably your show. We call it the love show where we can talk about anything under the sky and yet never forget that communication is always the key to having great relationships. I always believe doing hard work, also respecting others, believe you me, brings the best in a person. Having a better lifestyle will always help you in getting what you want, and aiming high is necessary because the desire in you should not be killed. So let's welcome my co-host Rishti, who is going to introduce Mr. Roland Lee with us tonight on Deep Talks, the virtual reality on love, life, and experiences. Don't forget, we are also live on YouTube. Gurleen Khokhar, a public figure and a psychologist. So please pass your love to us. Let us know that you are enjoying the conversation and this interview with me as much as I am always. Good evening, Srishti.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening and welcome everyone. Tonight we have with us a very special guest, and it is my absolute pleasure and honor to introduce him to you, Mr. Roland Lee Thompson. Mr. Roland Lee Thompson is an author, motivational speaker, an entrepreneur, and a loving grandfather and great grandfather to 48 children. He also served the US Navy touring Vietnam thrice. Being a financial advisor with almost 40 years of experience, he coached and supported innumerable people to plan and invest in and beyond retirement to create a purposeful life. His book, Now That I'm Retiring, What Do I Do With My Money? And Roland's Rules of the Retirement Road, acts as a roadmap to a step by step guide in living your retirement dreams, investment strategies, and what to look for in a financial advisor. He supports his family's business that provides foster care for developmentally disabled children and welcomes their families into his family and home, often including them in his own family gatherings. He is also the founder and president of Heart of the Fathers Foundation, whose aim is to help grandparents have the right mindset to create meaningful relationships with today's rising generation. Ronald Lee Thompson is an extremely passionate man who cares about people living the best life possible. His heart is consumed with supporting the rising generation to not only bridge the gap between the rising and sunset generations, but to empower them collectively so as to make a positive impact on the world. At this juncture, I also feel honored to introduce you with Dr. Gurleen Khokhar, founder of Deep Talks, a mental health initiative to break barriers, spread awareness, and to inspire people to live a healthy life. Today, in the 92nd episode of Deep Talks, we have Mr. Roland Lee Thompson to inspire us with his wonderful life experiences. I invite you all to take part in our efforts to spread messages of hope, love, and understanding by liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing this conversation with all your loved ones. Here, I would also like to mention that the contents of this channel doesn't intend to harm anyone's feelings or sentiments and doesn't have any intentions to hurt any religion, caste, creed, gender, or sex. There is no charm equal to tenderness of heart. On this note, halting this conversation for future connects and leaving the virtual stage of communication open to the public and ma'am for leading the way up. Thank you, sir and ma'am.
Thank you so much, Srishti, for such a lovely introduction to a great soul. So, welcome, Mr. Roland Lee Thompson, on this show, and thanks for taking out your time for us to be on Deep Talks. How does it feel?
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
That's my honor. And tell me about your life. Tell us, the audience who wants to know, being an author, how did this happen that you decided to pick your ink and share the message with the world? And how many books have you written?
Well, I've done. It's really hard to write a book, and it was they've always once you get that first one done, it makes it a little supposedly easier to do another. But you always start off writing a book that you in your mind that you want to get out there. But as you get going, another book pops up, and you end up doing that book.
Yes.
And that was my first book. Was I wanted to find a way to a very simple, easy way for people to be able to help themselves in determining their financial goals and what they're wanting to do, and also to help them so that they can go down the right path
True.
in selecting an advisor and things. The second book I did was a compilation that I did with Mr. Jack Canfield,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's called The Art of Success. In fact, I have a copy here. It's kind of it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yes, we can
And
see.
but anyway, that one I did about 4 or 5 years ago. A compilation of several people around the world, and it became a bestseller. And I mainly
Wow.
so that I could be considered, because once you're considered a best-selling author, that never goes away.
I'm sure
And
that must be a great moment for you, the art of success. Rarely people can find success, the meaning of success to you. We would love to ask you because you've written this book, you've authored this book, the bestseller. So, what to you really is success?
well, right now I'm working on a book that kind of to focus on what I'm doing in my foundation, and the title so far is Your Final Impact,
Oh,
and it's one of those things that everyone on this planet. One of my key messages that I like to get out there, because I'm just a messenger. I'm
yes.
not anybody special, and I'm always given a message that I want to get out to people to help them, because my main focus in life is to help everyone on the planet live the specific reason that they are here. And,
Yes.
and when you realize that on this planet there's 8 billion people, and
True.
that not one person on this planet anywhere has any more right to be on this planet than anyone else.
So I'm
Mm.
very sure that you have a divine calling to help people realize their potential and to live a better life. To me, this is an honor to hear what you're doing for people who cannot afford homes. You are a loving grandfather, a great grandfather to 48 children. You are a motivational speaker, an entrepreneur. What else can I say? When you look up at the word humanitarian work, do you think that it takes a person a long way in life?
The when you look at humanitarian, I shudder to. I'm trying to get rid of the idea of labels, for instance, for people. You know
Yes,
what I mean? For everyone to look at that, we are all citizens of the planet Earth, all of us, and that, like I said, we all have different culture, we have a different skin color, we're
true.
different, we're born in different countries,
Yes,
but that isn't who we are. Who we are
true.
is inside. And so many people try to identify people by what they are instead of learning who they are.
True.
And that so many people form opinions about people and judgment of people just by those other, where they were born and things like that. And opinions, in my opinion, it is
I totally agree with you on that score, what you're
the,
trying to convey.
yeah,
Yes,
but opinions basically really take you further away from the truth.
yes,
And I'm as I grow and trying to learn, I'm trying to really focus in learning who a person is. And my foundation is, I guess it started when, a few years ago when I started looking at all the turmoil that's going on in the world, not just our country, and the big division that we have.
Yes.
And so many people are stressed out about what's going on. And it, creates illness, whether it's physical, mental, it creates a lot of illness in people. And it's a lot of it's things they really can't do anything about. And
True.
so I look at it and I'm thinking, okay, how do we fix this? What can I do? And then you realize that all these children growing up in this world are coming into this planet, and they're actually our future leaders.
Yes.
And that every single one of them have come to Earth for a specific purpose. And
True.
and they're trying, and they know this inside, but there's a lot of fear they have in being judged by their peers and other people if they go after what they're supposed to do. And a lot of parents take these children and they try to mold them into what they want them to be instead of who they're
That's
supposed to be.
exactly, yeah, cutting you short here. The Indian parents also, I see and I witness as a mental health expert, a lot of children are pressurized to do the stuff that the parents want them to do. So that kills the scope of growth, which is including the creative channels where they can grow into a beautiful human being.
Right.
So I think it is the same in foreign countries as well. The pressure is equal, and the fear develops into the mindset and causes the success to move far away from the person. Do you agree with me on that score?
Oh yeah, I sit there and I think one of the things I'm focusing on right now is avoiding. I would try to say avoid regrets, because the regrets are a great way for us to learn. They're
Yes.
sometimes they're not bad, but I imagine how bad I would feel if any of my children grew up in this life solely for the purpose of not disappointing me, instead of living after their true purpose. And
Yes.
I see this in children as they grow up and they do things because they don't want to disappoint their parents.
Yes.
And I just my children, I mean, we're a mixed family, and my wife had children, I had children, then we had our two children. My youngest,
Yes.
actually, we adopted from Romania when she was 2 weeks old. And my youngest son, he was one that when I really started learning this a few years ago, found out what his heart and passion was music. And one of his great music teachers that he had was a well-known music teacher, told us as parents, he said, one of the mistakes that parents make when a child discovers what their purpose and passion in music is to tell them to get a backup degree in case they don't make it.
True.
And what happens is they end up not going after their passion, they end up going after the backup. And with my son, I just told him, hey, just go for it. I have your back. And how powerful it is for them to go after their passion and their dreams when they know somebody is holding their hand and has their back. There's no fear, because they learn through life that the only way you can grow is to fall down and just pick yourself
True.
up. Imagine
True.
a baby who watches their parents and falls down 500 times. And finally, what if the baby just said, you know what, this walking is not for me. I'm just going to crawl for the rest of my life because I hate falling down, and nobody would be walking. But one of the things I learned was that children will not do what you say. They will do what you do.
Yes. So they are great observers.
They're great observers, but they do not have the ability to analyze what they observe. They only mimic. They haven't been on Earth long enough to develop the tools to analyze anything. you
True.
know, and I was sitting there thinking, and this is just something that came to me in the last month or two, and it was kind of funny. I'll share a story.
Why
Is
not?
my youngest son, who's now he's in his 30s, he has three boys, and he lives on the other side of the country now. He's in the music business, and
Wonderful.
he lives in a very hot part of town in the city. He lives in Nashville, Tennessee, and he brings
Great.
his five the five of them come over and spend time with us during the hot summer, but he goes back and forth and working in our studio here or working in the studio
Super
back
cool.
in Nashville. And and we talk a lot. We're very close. And
Fantastic.
he
I love the idea that you talk a lot because that really opens up your heart and mind.
Well, you know, one of the philosophies that I've learned was, you know, there's the Chinese philosophy of you give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day. You teach him the fish and he'll feed himself for a lifetime. But
Superb.
in
Loved it.
today's world though, I think we got to fish with them in their fishing hole, you know, and
True.
not and so I've been really keeping that focus. So this one day we were talking and he was back home while his kids were here, and he goes, I said, well, how's it going? He said, well, I just got through FaceTiming with his 3-year-old, and his 3-year-old just plain old face on there. And but then when he mentioned his little stuffed animal that his 3-year-old had left at home, the 3-year-old's little stuffed animal's name is Spike. And he said, as soon as I mentioned Spike, his son lighted up and he just said, oh, how is Spike doing? I miss him so much. And he goes, and he told me, he says, you know, Dad, I wish he would look at me that way. And I said, well,
True.
you know what? I think you're onto something here, because what he does is he watches you put him to bed and he sees the love in your face as you're tucking him in, telling him that he loves you, that you love him, and he wants that feeling, but he doesn't have anybody to tuck into bed. So now what he does is he takes his little stuffy at night and he tucks his stuffy into bed and he goes, oh, I love you. And so it's like, oh my gosh,
Yes, the
that's
expression of
where,
feeling. Yeah.
so kids are watching and observing all the time and they're mimicking. And so I started applying that to little things like, so what about families where they get together and the kids are
Yes.
around and they
The
party?
family gatherings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they're partying and they're drinking alcohol.
Yes.
And
That's
they find out that they're drinking alcohol and they're getting happy. And the kids are saying, oh, for me to be happy, I need to
is to
drink
drink.
alcohol.
True.
Or if you're sitting there and, you know, and this is the way my dad smoked. So I smoked cigarettes. I don't anymore. But I
True.
remember, you know, maybe my dad would get done with a meal and, oh, this has been a great meal, and lights up a
Yes.
cigarette and, oh, so relaxing. And I go, oh my gosh,
Relaxing.
I want to have that feeling. So I start to smoke,
So I start doing it.
you know,
Yes,
so
you're
it's
very
kind of,
right. You're pointing some real facts that are going to enlighten the viewers. A lot many people have joined us today. And Geeta Sharma, very good evening. Dr. Preet Arora, very good evening. Devesh Neki Sarpan has joined us saying good evening. Sunil Kaushal, ma'am has joined us, who's a gynecologist. She says, I told my son to follow his passion when he was a kid, and he's a famous lyricist today by God's grace in the music industry.
that makes me
Fantastic.
emotional. I get
Yes,
emotional when I hear those kind of things because there's so many children out there are that want to go after their dreams and their passion. And one of the things, and I'm sure we have time. I like to share a story with you.
why not? It's going to enlighten everybody who's going to watch the show. So we are in conversation, and this is a show where the guest should not feel like a guest. It should be a candid conversation, and I'm all ears to you, and my audience is going to love it.
Well, you know, so the story goes one day while standing on the riverbank, the townspeople were alerted by several people who were frantically screaming as they were being carried downstream of the raging water's current. Well, moved by their plight, the caring townspeople immediately rescued these people from the river. As time went on, more and more people were being swept downstream. Well, research revealed what everyone had suspected, that the bridge further up the river had been badly damaged and only half the people were getting across
Okay.
and needing to be rescued. So the town committed more of their annual budget to fixing this problem. They hired professional rescue workers. They created rehabilitation programs. They built a riverside hospital. They invented ever more sophisticated rescue devices, and they trained more volunteers. Well, after several years of rescuing people from the river, one young man asked, "Hey, why don't we just fix the bridge?" Well, the rescue workers were too busy to give any thought to this idea. And still, some people said, "I don't know where the bridge is." And so they continued doing what they've been doing. And still others just said, "I don't know how to fix the bridge." And that really, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the way it is in society today when we read statistics of youth suicide. And we read,
Fantastic
and
story.
you know,
I'm amazed.
so I'm a bridge fixer. I have
Wonderful.
dedicated my, and one of the things when you realize of all the different bridges that children have, I figured there's like maybe 5 bridges. There's the one bridge that everyone comes to earth with is this connection to the spirit. We all are connected to the spirit. A
True.
lot of things damage and destroy that bridge as kids get going. Number 2 is the bridge between parents. Very strong bridge when children come to this earth, but that in itself gets destroyed by divorces, violence, and all kinds of, drugs, alcohol. The third one is the one that I'm really focused on. It's the grandparents or other family members with this young person, is maintaining that bridge. The fourth one is teachers. There are a lot of people whose lives have been put on the right track because of the special teacher in the school and every teacher and everyone interacting with these children. The fifth one is peers. A lot of children are afraid to go after their dreams or do things because they have the fear of what people would think about what they do.
True.
And fear keeps, that fear keeps one of the things that really keeps people from living the purpose they're here, not realizing that everyone has just as much right to be here than anyone else, and no one is better than you, and you're not better than anyone else. You have a different DNA. You have different fingerprints. You know what? Every single human being on the world has a different cell phone number now. So
I love that example set by you. I love the way you're narrating. I love the way you're highlighting the points. That's really necessary for the kids to realize, that the parents to understand the role they have in understanding their kids. Sunil Kaushal has rightly stated, parents are the first and the biggest role models for our kids. Wonderfully stated, ma'am. And 5 points highlighted by you, I'm sure the ones who will watch will take away something from this conversation. It is enlightening. And with a sip of water, you also served the US Navy. Oh, that's incredible. So how did you get into it? And what made you join the US Navy and toured Vietnam for, I mean, how many times did you tour Vietnam? I think twice?
3 times.
Yes.
So that's an interesting story because when I was growing up, I grew up with a broken family, and my first 5 years of my life, I lived with my mom and dad, and they had 2 more children. Then on the 5th year, my parents divorced. They both remarried. For 5 years, I lived with my mom, with my 2 brothers, and then the next 5 years, I lived with my dad. And then the final 5 years was my dad divorced, and it was just my dad, my 2 brothers, and me. This was during the late 60s. In 69 is when I graduated high school. Now, I was focused on working and going to school. I never did any homework. That was the amazing thing. But anyway,
I love that.
But I graduated. I graduated, and one of the several instances in that year of my life, 1969, One was July 8th of that year. That my grandfather, my dad's father, had passed away. And that's the first time I ever experienced anyone in my life, my family, who has passed away and died. And where dying was brought to me. Now, my whole life, I never grew up with any religious influence whatsoever. I had no idea about life or anything, but I was just working. And I remember when my dad left, my grandfather lived about 1,000 miles south in California. And my two brothers, they went down to the funeral, but because I had to work, I stayed home.
Yes.
And I'm 17 years old at this time. And I'm
Sure.
just getting ready to graduate high school, and I'm laying in bed, and I started thinking about death. And I started thinking, oh my gosh, what happens when you die? Do you just snap and never think and never exist anymore? Do you just quit thinking like a leaf crumpled and you're just gone? And I couldn't comprehend that. It just baffled me. And I thought, well, if that's the case, I'm going to go through school and go through all this and then die and then not exist anymore. Then I thought, why even live at all? Why you know what I mean?
That was a great
Why
thought at the age of 17. Yeah.
Yeah, why should I go through all these challenges of studying for my finals and stressing out and doing all this if I'm just going to just not vanish and not be anything anymore? It was to the point that I contemplated taking my own life because I figured that it was a win-win situation. Figured if I'm gone anyway. Number two is if there is a life after this, I'm going to find out right away. And obviously I didn't do it, but at the time we didn't have internet. I didn't even watch the news. I didn't read newspapers. I was too busy being a teenager. So I had no idea about a lot of the things that was going on in the world with the Vietnam and stuff. A lot of there's protesters and stuff. I just never followed it. Didn't even think anything about it. And then, then 4 days before my birthday, it's the only time I really watched the news was on July 20th, 1969. My dad and us, we sat in front of the TV and watched the man land on the moon. And it was like, that was fascinating. I mean, science fascinating. The fact that you are on the opposite side of the earth at this moment, and we're talking and below, I'm beneath the sun, you're beneath the stars right now. You know what I mean? And that we're able to do this,
I know.
It just baffles. It's amazing to me. Well, one day I was working as a cook. So to get back to your question, I was working as a cook in a fast food place, standing next to a lady. Her name was Donna, and she was probably in her 30s. And she was talking, and she asked me, because it was just my dad and my two brothers and me. She goes, "So what are you going to do with your life? Are you just going to just stay home and live with your dad forever?" And I thought, I never thought of it. She goes, my husband, Dave, he joined the Navy. I go, really? And he enjoyed it. Maybe you should join the Navy. And Gurleen, I sit there, I go, oh my gosh, I think I will. And the next day, that night, I went home, waited for my dad to come home. And I said, hey, Dad, I'm going to work for the federal government. He goes, oh, really? I said, yeah, I'm going to join the Navy. He goes, well, that's great. The next day he took me down and I signed up. Now, when we did this, I didn't realize that Vietnam was going on. And I ended up I go to boot camp, I go to training, and then I get stationed on a ship. And as soon as I land, and it was out of Hawaii, as soon as I'm on there, we're doing this training and to get ready to go overseas. And the next thing I know, here it is, a year after that event, I'm sitting off the coast of Vietnam on a ship. And it's like, but it was probably the 4 years. Yeah, it is.
A lady giving you a sight and you're just picking that thought and getting into it and just going crazy, adventuring, touring and learning a lot. I'm sure you've supported, inspired many souls around you. You've taught people how to invest the right way. You've taught them how to make plans for the future, for making them have a purposeful life. In your book, and now that I'm retiring, and what do I do with my money? You've also highlighted the rules of the retirement road, which has acted as a roadmap to a step-by-step guide in living life after retirement. What are your thoughts about those people who have depression after retirement? Do you think it should be tackled with the mental health experts and they should come out openly if they are having some issues? And it should not be something that they should die with a thought that they cannot do anything anymore.
Well, when after doing the many years in the financial, and I was considered, I had a tag on there. I was as one of the nation's top financial advisors to baby boomers, and I was a retirement coach. I helped people retire, and later on, as I went on, I realized oh my gosh, we weren't put on earth to retire. We were put on earth to create and to follow our purpose until we one day don't wake up. And if you wake up in the morning, God's not done with you. And when he's done with you, you won't wake up. And I started, it just started realizing that, I felt bad about helping people plan for retirement. I should be helping them find their purpose.
I'm laughing over it because there is no retirement as such, even if you've left your work, you're just living life each moment and trying to do something or the other in your life. It's just crazy, but it's something that's, I'm supporting this thought, but at the same time laughing on it because I can understand your feeling. You're preparing people for retirement. And how does that sound?
Well, you sit there and you think, okay, I'm working and I'm looking forward to retirement. Here I'm working, I'm born, I go to high school, I go to college, I get a career, I retire, and what's next? Dying. It's like, wait a minute. It's like, there's got to be more to it than that. And that's when I realized that every single human being has a specific purpose. And for the people who are getting ready to retire, there was a book written that one of the things that got me on track, there are several things that affected me to get me on the track to where I am now, my purpose. One of them was a few years ago, I was trying to do a book. I was going to do a book, and there was a well-known person. He did a book. I guess he lived in Boston. He was a governor, and I thought, you know what? I want to get somebody like that to do a foreword in a book I'm writing. Yeah. Well, one day I was looking on Facebook. I'm fascinated by Facebook. I grew up without that, and it's like a social thing. So, so what happened was, I noticed that on my third tour in Vietnam, there was a man who he was injured in Vietnam in 1968. He lost his eye, and he got a Medal of Honor, and so they were honoring him in Boston, 3,000 miles away. Well, he was my executive officer, and I served under him in my third tour in Vietnam. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's Captain Kelly. And I go, I think I'll reach out to him because I'm going to be in Boston for a conference, and I would love to. And I've always he did something special for me in that year, that in 1973 that I was with him in the service, that I never really gave him thanks for. And I wanted to take him to lunch, which is a stab in the dark, So I looked him up, found his phone number on the internet, and called him, and he called me back. So that to me was a miracle. But I figured everything happens for a reason.
For a reason.
So I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to be in Boston. He said, sure, come on. So we ended up having lunch. And when I was talking to him, I was telling him I was reaching out for this person. And I said, well, do you know who he is? And he said, well, of course I know who he is. I served under him when he was governor in the veterans thing. I go, really? And he said, and he writes about me in his book. And I said, what's the book? So I got the book. It's called No Apologies. I got the book and I started reading it before I went to Boston. And chapter 6 of that book talked about, I'm a baby boomer. That's the generation. I'm trying to get rid of even that label. I'm
Yes,
working on
really.
several things, but I started reading it, and it talked about the baby boomers were heading to becoming the worst generation in our
Very right.
country. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I looked into it and I go, he's right. When I looked at the sequence of why that happened, and I can go into a long time and telling how that evolved, with Social Security and things like that. But I'm a baby boomer. I don't want to leave that kind of a legacy when I die. Oh, when one of my great grandchildren go, oh, so your great grandpa was a boomer. Yep, he was one of the worst generations. And it's like, that's not a legacy that I want to leave.
That's not,
I said,
that's not the thought. Yeah.
can I turn it around? Can I make us become the greatest generation? And I realized that that's when that bridge was broken between the two generations. That
Superb.
the younger generation and the older generation aren't connecting. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, 80 years ago, was president of the United States. And he said a quote. He said, "We cannot always build a future for our youth, but we can always build our youth for the future."
Future. Fantastic. I'm just loving this quote of yours because it's something that will enlighten the viewers and the audience. And I'm sure more than it, I think it's just resonating with the ideas that I'm having about how the youth should be trained for the future. So that's brilliant. That's brilliant. The way you put up things, the way you're narrating your stories, they're so heart touching and warming. I'm sure the audience is loving, and there are a lot many people I have to thank who have joined the conversation. So we are all in awe of you, my dear friends, the ones who've joined us and are supporting this conversation, because you are the ones that make this more enlightening and happening. And
I appreciate
with
that.
our heart. Yes, I really appreciate their taking out their time and listening to what Roland has to say and convey to a lot many more people so that it impacts their mindset for living a better life. We cannot live a dull life. I'm sure he agrees with me on that score. We are not retiring anymore. Age is not a criteria that should be just there in the mindset while we retire. There are things that we can plan. There is enough time we can give to our kids and the people around us, the near ones. We should have gatherings, we should meet up, and we should definitely stay connected, and we should communicate. These are all the points that will build you into a better human. So no matter the years going by, we still have that energy, we still have that passion. If it is alive within us, there's no point wasting your time just doing the monotonous work that you're doing, my dear friends, because that kills the real creative seeds that can shape you for something that's really larger than life. Exactly, that's what I'm trying to convey through the show, that you can live a life only with an optimistic thought. And
Well,
if guaranteed success, then you will only realize it when you grow through those challenges and seek out for assistance at the right time. So yes, you were saying something, Roland.
well, and that's the thing with if we're going to build the youth for the future, one of the challenges is that, remember I talked about the broken, damaged bridge.
Yes.
How can we prepare our youth for the future when there's no bridge? And when I talk to people my age and I said, hey, we've got to reach out, and they said, not going to happen. They don't understand us.
They don't understand.
They're too much busy on their electronic devices. And I'm too old. What do I have to offer them? And then I realized, just a few years ago when I was going through all this, that what we need to do is how these children, I guess because you've dealt with the mental health issues, and they talk about, and this is one of the things I was just in the last few months was statistics.
True.
What good is statistics? What good are they? When they say 20% of all youth contemplate suicide,
Yes.
Are they all
Sad.
painted? Are they all painted green so we can identify them, so we can work on them? No, you don't know who they are. And I have two good friends. Both of them lost teenagers to suicide. And
Sad.
then
Very
I
sad.
started looking at what regret is. I was thinking about, I'm working on kind of a talk, and I'm trying to think what would be one of the biggest human regrets. And then I started thinking back. My life changed really big drastically was 40 years ago, almost 40 years ago. I was married. I had 4 children. My 5th child was on the way. I had the best job in the world. And it was like life was so good. And then the next thing you know, my 5th child born. A month later, my oldest son, who was 7, drowned, and I lost him. And then I started thinking about the regrets. I should have told him I loved him more. I should have spent more time, and spend more time with them, because you never know when they're going to leave. Well, then my dad and I became really close. And one of the things with my dad was he lived 4 hours away, and he'd come over and he'd help me. Well, then I get a call almost 6 months from the day my son drowned from my dad's best friend telling me my dad had just passed away. My dad just turned 49 years old. I said, "What happened?" He goes, "Well, he shot himself." And I think, oh my gosh. Now I'm like, could I have made a difference? Could I have gotten to know him more? I never got to face tell him I loved him. I never got to hug him because it wasn't the macho thing to do.
True.
And then I started thinking of regret. What would be the biggest regret? Is, one of your grandchildren was one of the 20% who succeeded in taking their own life. And what if you could have done something about it? Well, I started thinking of statistics and how meaningless they were when I get a call from one of my adult children telling me their teenager, my grandchild, was in the
Wow.
hospital after attempting suicide the night
That's
before.
sad.
And I'm thinking, wait a minute. I thought they were part of the 80% that didn't contemplate it. And I'm realizing it's all these children. Anyone can help. They just want to be seen. Right now, they're feeling isolated and hopeless. They know there's a purpose for them to be here, but there's no one there to listen to them and support them. And every single one of us know children. And,
Yes.
like I said, I have 48 grandchildren.
Yes.
All of them are here for a reason. And my
True.
focus is learning who they are. So what if you don't have anything to add? Of course you have things to offer. You have 2 ears so you can listen to them. You got a set of lips so you can ask questions about them to learn who they are. And you have 2 arms so that when you're around them, you can hug them. Let
True.
them feel. If everybody did that and realized that, you know what? We are one. We're all the citizens of the planet Earth. Everyone is totally different. We have 8 billion little worlds on this planet.
This makes me
We,
realize that the saying that miracles are within us. We just need to realize the importance of our organs, the values we have learned, the challenges we have endured. We all can grow through them, and we should not hesitate to ask for help.
oh,
That
that's
is
a good point.
that's really, really, really important that we should know if we are feeling low, we're not feeling all right, we can ask for help because that really counts in making us feel better. And one should have the habit of self care. People forget that in caring for others, you have to be all right to care for others. If you yourself are unable to look after your mental and physical health, how are you going to be having the right mindset for creating meaningful relations with people, and be it kids?
That's the thing with mental health. A lot of people, I think there's a big stigma that there is about mental health. You see somebody who has a cold, somebody who has cancer, somebody who's a broken arm, and you don't think much about, that's a normal thing. But when somebody says deals with mental health. That's part of the brain. And people treat it totally different when it actually, it's an illness. You know, when I talk about labeling, you know, when somebody says, oh, so-and-so is a drug addict. No, they're a citizen of the planet Earth who has a issue with addiction. They're not a bad person.
Exactly. That's what I keep saying. It's better not to label them, better
Right.
not to tag them, and better not to have mental health illness as a taboo. You know,
Right.
this is what most of the souls do. And I'm sure that the people who are listening to our conversations are liking it, loving it. Good evening, Nilesh Tayari has joined us, and Akshay Singh has joined us. It says, wonderful conversation happening, amazing souls talking. There is Sunil Kaushal, ma'am, who has written, I try to fill every moment in as meaningful a way as possible. Age notwithstanding, that is fantastic, ma'am. Kudos to you, and I know that you're living each moment. She's also pointed out so many suicides are reflective of relationships dying out, broken bridges.
Yep. You know, and that's the thing. We got to realize that we all, you know, here's the thing. We teach our children in school that he with the most toys wins. And you read things on how to get wealthy, how to get rich, how to, you know, have big houses, and how, you know, and that's even one reason why I just got out of the financial, because it's all focused on the money thing. But in reality, it's not he with the most toys that wins. It's he with the most connections wins.
True.
And that we need to be focusing on connections without judgments and opinions, learning who a person is and not determining who they are just by the color of their skin or where they were born or you know, their religion even. And it's just that everyone, you know, I sit there and I think about the older people my age. I've been on this planet over 7 decades. I have gone through a lot of challenges. I've overcome a lot of challenges. I've had a lot of great happiness, a lot of great success, and all of that out there has come into me to make me who I am.
True.
Do I just die with all that? It's like how can I take all of this
Nobody
and
can take that.
reach the rising generation and you can't what you got to do is look for opportunities to be one-on-one with them. If you don't have the opportunity, you create the opportunity and you learn who they are. When you learn and focus on learning who they are and listen, ask questions, give them hugs and support with no judgment, with no opinions, no advice that they didn't ask for, and you just hold their hands and you fish with them and they find their purpose and you hold their hand and fish. Imagine that we're on the edge of a 50-year forest. What I mean by that is this. Tomorrow morning when you and I wake up, well, it'll be different for us because we're 12 hours difference.
Sure.
But tomorrow morning when we wake up, we're going to be somewhere that no man has ever set foot on, ever. And that's tomorrow. No one's ever been in tomorrow. You imagine a child who comes to this earth, and you look at tomorrow like a 50-year forest that no one has ever stepped foot in. And they're at the edge of this forest. And they're afraid to go forward. I'm also at the edge of this forest. And it's unseen for me too. But when I hold it's going to be their forest, because as I go 10 years into the forest, statistically, I'm going to be gone in 10 years. And as we go into the forest and I hold their hand as we go forth, just by holding their hands and having their back gives them courage to go forward. And it's like, so how do I take all of this wisdom and experience and everything that I have and pass it on to them? Because to me, that's true legacy. I look at the traits and the values I picked up from my father that he picked up from his mother. That's what legacy is. It isn't physical material things.
True.
It's giving them the values and the principles that I learned over these last 70 years and passing those key things on to my children who will pass it on to their children that help them get through and fulfill the true purpose that they are here. And if by just holding their hand, giving them courage to go forth, you know, it's so much joy for them to go. I share.
Satisfactory. It is something that's giving you something which cannot be compared, written in any book. It is something that's I would say it just gives you that immense joy when you are helping someone smile. You are granting your one wish to Lord above that you've done something good. I really
Right.
feel good when I make somebody smile or when I'm posting the show. I really do it with so much of passion that I don't look for the next moment who's going to come. I'm just enjoying with whom I am tonight because I just love doing this. It comes out of my soul and it shows, it reflects on my face in the words that I say, the things I mean. It's important that we, while we are staying and living on this planet, connect with people across the globe and make a revolution sorts where children learn from us how important connections, networking, socialization, asking for help, and seeking guidance and assistance, not only from psychologists, but from any friend, any elder person who's had experiences. I believe it's everywhere there is a scope of learning while you're going out somewhere, while you're traveling. So bookish knowledge is not enough, is what my father taught me. I agree with it. And networking is what I am trying to realize the biggest asset that has happened to me through Facebook. And I cannot be thankful enough to the Facebook that I have connected to people, maybe a lot many people from the United States. And as we were chatting and conversing, how do we know each other? It really comes out that we are knowing enough people who are our mutual friends. And it gives me a feeling of friendliness, a feeling of integrity that I've earned while I'm in India, owing something that's priceless and earning something that is for a better living. Materialism stands a little chance in happiness where we are doing something that actually involves kindness, empathetic attitude, and a right mindset for making people breathe better. People have forgotten to breathe and take out time to breathe. So they're practicing mindfulness, yoga, therapies to just realize the time that they're losing it while they're earning and they're just stuck up between their monotonous job routines. They've forgotten their children who are there at home. They have become addicted to mobile phones and all those things that they should not be while they are growing because it's their innocence that is dying. I'm sure you'll agree with me. When a child's innocence dies, it kills the beauty of the fact that they are called kids. That is what I really have to say because this really means a lot to me. When I was the principal of a school, I was shattered to pieces when I came to know that parents can give as much to their demands when it comes to setting themselves out of the home. When they're going for work, they can give as much toys, as much money for their candies, for everything. But they do not have quality time for their children, whether be it 1 hour, half an hour, or they don't have time to listen to their desires, needs, wants, and they don't have the right aptitude to be parents at all. They have given birth, but some of them, very sadly, what I'm stating is the reality. They have money, they have everything, but they do not have the right aptitude to let communication be there between their children and them. It is very sad. And what you're talking is centering around the kids. So I picked up this issue because it is important for people to realize that what we are talking is obviously a free advice. It comes with a lot of experiences. And if somebody is here on my show tonight, it really means a lot to me. I always share a quote on my show before I talk to you. This quote is: kindness takes nothing much, but grants one immense satisfaction and blessings. You have been the founder and president of Heart of Fathers Foundation. You've aimed to help grandparents have the opportunity to have the right mindset, creating meaningful relationship with today's rising generation. How does it really feel? This is something that is very close to my heart because you've kept the name of the foundation, Heart of Fathers Foundation. Now, I'm sure that you have something to share on this before we end up the conversation, which I never would want to. But yes, because of the time and because you are just, I think it's morning there, it's 10:15 or 10:20 a.m. there, and here it is 11:13 p.m. Still, people are enjoying the conversation. So we would love to hear something about your foundation.
Well, the the name, like I said, the foundation came about because I needed a way for people to connect the rising generation with the sunset generation, the older generation, to avoid that regret. The thing is so in the Bible, I'll use the Bible, in the Old Testament, one time I heard, and this is where the Christian part was that the purpose of Christians was to prepare the world for the second coming, and it's like, wait a minute. Well, then I was reading in the Bible, the last two verses in the Old Testament was Malachi chapter 4, verses 5 and 6, that said, before the great and dreadful day, that's the second coming, the Lord will send the prophet Elijah to bring the heart of the fathers to the children. I think, what's the heart of the fathers? Oh my God, that's my grandchildren. And the heart of the children. So what's the heart of the children? Well, it's their purpose and the reason they're here, to the fathers. And I thought, that's perfect. So, and so we're still in the development of this, and I'm focused on taking care of, one project before I even go further with the foundation. But the foundation, I would say, it provides the tools and the education to effectively connect them. So what are the tools and the education? I have run across a lot of people whose purpose in life is to help the children connect to their purpose. I'll give you an example, and I'm going to mention this person's name because I love them very much, and you might even know who they are. I don't know if you know Dr. Suki Stone.
Oh yeah, I've heard the name.
She has this program that teaches people to read who struggle with dyslexia and ADHD and all these, and the struggles with it. And she had, and so one day, a couple months ago, I took one of my grandchildren with me down to where she lives in San Diego, and for 3 or 4 days, and he worked with her. He was like 8 years old, and it amazed me in what she does with them and how she does it. But I'm sitting there thinking, I'm a grandpa bringing a grandchild to teach him how to read. Imagine a child growing up who's destined to be a leader of the country or a leader of the world, and they don't know how to read. And so I figured, so you take the foundation, promotes these programs that people are already out there doing these kind of thing, and try to bring them all together as part of the foundation, so that's where it came from. So it reminds me, when I say the heart of the fathers, I'm thinking, what's the heart of the fathers? It's our children. That's our hearts. And, and before we leave this world, we need to figure out a way to take all this wisdom and experience and provide it to them. Well, a lot of people think that we just tell them what to do. But what it is you've heard the thing that we become the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. You've heard that before, right?
Yeah, yes.
And how does that happen? Well, if you're around a child a lot and you're focused on them, they eventually, so when you learn who they are, without you telling them who you are, they actually learn who you are just by you being around. One of my grandchildren, who's an adult now, and I use him in one of my stories that I tell, how I turned his life, helped him turned his life around, got him on the right path to his purpose. Wasn't because it was the voice that says, you want him to change, don't you? And I go, yeah, I want him to change. He says, it's not going to happen. You have to change. What? You have to change. So I changed and I learned who he was. And later on down the road, he goes, Grandpa, I think old people don't realize how exciting their life was, or how interesting their life was. I go, oh my gosh, that's pretty profound, because I didn't tell him about my life, but I was just around him. And so to get an idea, so after I spent this 3 or 4 days with my 8-year-old grandson and we came home, one day he turned to me, just during this time, during a travel, it's just Grandpa and him traveling. He turns to me, he says, Grandpa, if you were given a genie's lamp, what would you wish for? I was like, oh my gosh, this is coming from an 8-year-old. And I go, oh my gosh, and it's like, I'm careful with the way I answer. And I just sat down with him and I said, yeah, I guess, instead of asking for more wishes and wishing for more wishes, I said, I think my wish would that every human being on the world would live the true reason they are here, And I was going to ask you.
That's really deep. Only people who have a spiritual streak or something related to it will understand. But what it takes to understand is that it is indeed meaningful. Whatever you've said is just deep and meaningful. It is so very good.
So a conversation I usually get now with people when I want to get in a conversation and learning who they are, I say, Gurleen, if you knew that every single citizen of the planet Earth loved you without any condition, everywhere you go, people would love you and they'd come up to you and just love you. You would feel their love, and everywhere. You can go down the darkest alleys of the dangerous streets and people would see you and they would love you. How would you feel?
I would feel lovable. I would just love it. That is something that is admirable, that is appreciative. I think money cannot buy.
Well, and so my next question would be, if you look around on the planet Earth and the people you run into that you've never seen before and people around, can you honestly say when you look them in the eye, not even knowing who they are or anything, that you could love them, that you would love them? Could you say, I love that person. I love that person. I love you. I love everyone that's here. I truly love it. Could you honestly say that? Well, a lot of people say, well, no. Well, that's where it starts. That's where it starts.
I would say yes. To everyone, I say I love you because it comes from heart. How can you just deprive somebody of the love? And how can you not understand the true meaning of unconditional love? I mean, for me, love holds the power to change the mindset of anybody. For that matter, when you are yourself loving yourself, I think you can bestow more blessings on others than anything else. It is beyond my imagination how love counts for a lot of who I am today. All those experiences.
Would you agree that that every single person on the planet has a deep desire to be loved?
Oh yeah, I totally agree. Half of them are deprived and majority of them are deprived even in the relations they are living in, whether they are of any sorts. I'm sure lucky a few, I would call them fortunate enough if they've got somebody of their dream, desire, needs, wants. But still, there is a hope for those people who try to look out for love. And it is the saddest part that people are dying because they're deprived of love. They do not get the attention, and it is a disease. And that's how people cannot address it in the way we are addressing it, because it's very, very difficult to explain to people that they're not dying because they don't have money. They're dying because there is nobody around them to listen to them, to love them, to lend an ear to them, to give them a helping hand, is what all I feel. Maybe it's a divine calling for me to have this show. Maybe it is something that many people told me, what are you going to do with this show? How many guests are going to call? Is any money coming in? So when I approach people, I do feel that there is a meaning to it. There is a walk that I'm walking, and this life is a walk.
You
I,
only
it,
need to touch one. You
yes,
know, just one. That's all it is. You know, when somebody says that one person, I'm gonna challenge something I've been trying here in the last few months. Some people think it's kind of corny, but it's interesting to me because children are my focus
yes,
and young adults. Is the next time, just try this. If you're in the audience, just
true.
try this. The
Yes,
next time you go up to a grocery mart, uh, a hamburger window, or wherever you're at, and there's a young person serving you. And I do this all the time, and it's amazing to me. I look them at the eyes after they give me my hamburger or whatever, and I said, hey, thank you so much for coming to work today. You have made my life so much easier, and I
you.
really, really appreciate you. Now, the responses I get from this is mind blowing. I've had people tear up and say, thank you so much. That means so much to me. I've had them say, oh my gosh, I didn't think anyone ever saw me. I was like, oh, that just tears my heart out. And there's so many people we walk by that we ignore. And when I used to speak at the universities a lot to young people,
Yes.
and one of the things I challenged them, I came up with a thing that called the 6 A's to happiness, and it
Okay.
talks about self-esteem.
Yes.
And when I ask this definition of self-esteem, a lot of young people don't know the definition, but I give people this definition. Here's the definition of self-esteem: is how you view other people viewing you. How you view other people viewing you. And I teach them the law of indirect effort means that everyone wants their self-esteem to be as high as what it is. And the
True.
law of indirect effort is things happen the opposite of what you think they're going to happen. And
True.
so if you want to build your own self-esteem, do everything you can to build other people's self-esteem. So
True.
if you're in a group of people that, a community that you have, and you want everyone to like you. So what you got to do is go and like them.
Yeah, start
So
liking others.
so I
Yes,
tell them, I said,
so true.
when you walk by, the next time you walk by somebody that you don't know, look them in the eye, smile, and say, good morning. And just do that. And it's amazing what that does. So if you were in a group and I was in that group, and every time I'm around you, I smile and say, good morning. I talk about you. I make you feel important. I admire your beautiful earrings. And I just
I'm sure.
accept
I
you.
just loved it. Who doesn't, like somebody appreciating you for the way you are dressed up? And I really love people who are appreciative of the fact that when I host the show, they say, you have been a fantastic host. I mean, you make us feel comfortable. Just before the show, we were so pairing. What are we going to talk about when we come on the show? Is it only going to be about the bold topics, or is it going to be something really nice about the experiences? So I do not plan, I do not intend to pop up some questions in a hierarchical manner. I am just here. We are having a casual conversation.
Right.
We are supposed to be who we are in front of the camera. That's we, our mirror self. If you're liking our mirror self, the strengths and the weaknesses together, the good and the bad days together, we are walking a beautiful life. I'm
We
sure. I'm
are. I'm a very appreciative. And every morning, it's kind of like the other thing I tell, when they say that, for instance, bring the topic to children, that, well, they feel like they're entitled. They feel like they deserve this. They don't have any gratitude or anything. And then I said, what would happen if every morning, if you have a family, children, every morning you sat around with your children and you looked around and you gave gratitude for everything you have. Thankful for the food you're about to partake. Thank you for the shelter. Thank you for each other. And you did that every morning, showing gratitude. Remember, children don't do as you say, they do as you do. And if you set the tone as they grow up, and they mimic, and in their mind they grow up with the heart of gratitude. And you and I, we see so many people, we're teaching people that gratitude is one of the biggest things in life that changes a person's health. It changes their relationships. It changes their mindset. It gives them you have two mindsets. You're either a poverty mindset, always in need, or a prosperity mindset where you're satisfied with everything you have and you're willing to give. It's those two mindsets. And if every human being walked around with a prosperity mindset, with gratitude, accepting people, and if everyone lived the reason they were here, I don't think we would have any wars.
Oh my God,
And
I am
crime
just
and
loving this conversation because the
yeah.
way you have portrayed the real issues in a way which is really meaningful. We are really celebrating this conversation. Sunil Kaushal has said, "What a wonderful way to build your self-esteem by building up this team of others." Wow. Many people who have commented. I would love to say thanks to all of them. We have heard, we have read your comments. We love the way you're loving us, and there's more to come. We are celebrating our 2 years of Deep Talks on 6th of August, and this is a walk towards making 100 episode as a milestone. We are honored to have Mr. Roland Lee Thompson with us tonight, and the love that he's showered on all of us, including me, and the appreciative comments that he has given to all of us, including me, is really commendable. My aha moment has come where I bid adieu to those who came on my show and extend my love for those who are anticipated soon to walk with me towards the final journey of the 100th episode. I'm sure it's not going to end there. There's no full stop for me. My passion is still alive, and I'm growing each day by connecting to souls that are making me feel so wonderful that I have no words for them, that I feel so beautiful with them, because each one of you is beautiful and unique in their own way. And Mr. Roland, it's wonderful to just get a yes from you for the show. It was a great conversation. I would love you to say a passing message for the audience who's going to watch us after we end this conversation, because I'm sure this conversation has been one of my best conversations so far, and I cannot help thank you enough for it, because we are the two grateful souls that we connected, and beyond that we will always be in touch with each other. For that, I'm sure.
Well, I really I appreciate this opportunity, and for me, it's still the beginning of my journey, and to be able to give my message. I'm a messenger to people on the other side, on the other side of the world. It's amazing to me. God, I think God created the internet because it's one way to encompass the whole planet. I think I was thinking of this the other day. It's like, if it wasn't for COVID, I don't think people would really realize
Yes,
how powerful this is as far as having a platform
true,
to get their message, to get his message out there,
true,
one of love, and and it's that we're all here for a specific reason, each and every one of us. And
true.
you're here, but also the other person's here. And it's for a specific reason. When
True.
you see a young person, and so many people, and they're covered with tattoos and piercings and stuff, and they're sitting there on the bus or wherever. So many people are looking at them and with judgment and opinions. But the thing about it is I love going up to the people, and somebody was like it with a tattoo and said, "Oh my gosh, that is really an interesting tattoo you have. Well, what's the story behind it?" And they perk up. "Oh, well, this was a butterfly that my mom, before she passed away, she would always have, and it reminds me of my mother." And I
Yes,
think, how many of us carry those memories that of who we are, and that family is really important. And family is
Very
not blood. We're all family, all of us. We're all
true.
citizens of the planet Earth. We're here to love each other. And
Yes,
if you know the feeling of being loved by others, then start giving it. Because if you really want to receive something, you give it away.
true.
So why not give love and you will receive love? And quit looking at the opinions and judgments of people. Quit focusing on seek the truth. Here's one thing. When somebody states their opinion, I like to ask, I had no idea. That's pretty interesting. How do you know? How did you know? And a lot of times I go, well, I really don't know. Why is that when you find the truth, because opinions and beliefs can be changed. Is that right?
Change. Yes.
But can truth be changed?
No.
So once you find the truth,
And
live the
stick to
truth,
it.
live the truth, live it. Don't proclaim the truth, because when you proclaim it, the barriers of judgments and opinions, people are out there. But if you live the truth, you draw people to you, and they want to be like you, and they want to live like you. So therefore, they will learn who you are,
True.
and that will change their life by you living the truth. And it's
Yes.
so important. I mean, I don't
Yes.
have long to go. I've actually gone through the death thing like 3 times already. I've been in comas and I've drowned, and people ask me if I've learned anything from there. The only thing I would share from them is this: the human being, as we are here on earth, cannot comprehend at all what eternity and infinity is. You can't
Yes.
comprehend it. And it's exciting to look forward to that, because when you die, you will learn what infinity and eternity is. And it's
True.
like, oh, it's going to be exciting. But while you're here, do whatever you can to leave the world a better place than what you found it. And the
Wonderful. This
bit,
couldn't have been better with your statements, with your examples. And there is the last comment that I'm reading by Devesh Negi Serpan. This person has beautifully written, this conversation was amazing. Looking forward for more in the future. Thanks a lot, because it means a lot to both of us. And from our side, I'm sharing my heartful thanks to those who joined us. Thanks for sharing your thoughts, comments, loving and liking our conversations. I always instill to actually speak about confidence, to communicate and break barriers for the free talk, make way for asking help, to be able to find enough reasons to learn. That is one thing that I always say, and every heart and every mind needs to express, my dear friends. Love seat holds relevance with bold moves and stick to the truth. Because every talk gains a little from what's going on in the world and what one has learned over the years. So, this is me, your host, with our powerful guest, who is Mr. Roland Lee Thompson, tonight with us. And I'm sure his journey is going to be amazing, touching many more souls. We are wishing you the very best from our side, me and my co host, who gave a wonderful introduction to you and the audience, the Indian audience, just saying thanks to you, because I know how much it means to take out your precious time and be with us. It was wonderful having you over on Deep Talks, and I hope that we just don't end it up here. We stay connected, and also looking forward to host you in whatever celebrations you have in your life. And Srishti, my co-host, thanking you for this eye-opening conversation. She says it's a pleasure listening to you, sir. Wonderful. It was just the best episode I could have imagined. It was magical.
thank
It's
you.
indeed one of the really powerful conversations that we were looking for walking the 100 show time. And I'm sure you would also be showering a lot of blessings on all of us, because you've had more learning experiences than we've had. So there's a lot to learn from you. And I'm sure you will teach us how to live better.
Thank you.
Thank you.